All right, on to something new today. I just need to state before the video starts that these videos I do are simply me discussing things I'm doing on my bike. These aren't tutorials. If you're here to try and learn something in 2 minutes, you know, that's not what this is about. I'm just talking about stuff to do with my bike. All right. Now this is another part, every part of the bike, every single thing I do on my bike gets obsessed over in great detail. And that's part of the hobby. That's what I like doing. I like getting into detail and sorting everything out as best I can. And every part of the bike has a long story. And right, so this here is the clutch cable. Now I was working on my bike the other day, sorting out. Oh, what was I doing? Can't remember. I was doing something. And for some reason I decided I would pull the clutch cable off. Can't remember why, but I pulled it off and found that it was just about ready to break. Right here. At this point. So when that piece came out there, it was cut through right there. It was badly frayed. About a third or so of it was still attached. That was going to break. And I was not going to be very happy about that. It was going to be a mess. That could have happened anywhere, out on the road or anywhere. And what would you do? So luckily I did pull it off. And that was an NOS clutch cable too, which was in very nice condition otherwise. Now, I had to get a new clutch cable quickly. I went to all the websites, you know, all the usual suspects, and found that there are 3 lengths of cable. There's a short one about 1100 or so long, or 1130 for the sheath. Let me just check that. That's this one. So 1100. And then there's a longer one by a little bit. And then there's a longer one again, which is 13 centimeters longer than this. And the difference is for the different bikes. So the SS with the clip-ons has the short one. And the Dharma, like with the high-rise bars, has the long one. I don't know which one's in between. Maybe the 860s or whatever, different years, I don't know. When you look these up, I think Steve at Bev has different lengths, and the others I couldn't find different lengths. And I needed a cable quickly because of all the lockdown garbage and all the breakdown of logistics around the world. I called up Gowanlock in Sydney and had a chat to the guy there who has been working there forever. Worked for Ian Gowanlock way back as well. And they do a long one, and it's the only one they do, is a long one, and they just sell that one for all bikes. So it's sort of a replica. It's nice, it's actually very nicely made. Doesn't have that on it, but you can buy that. That's my original, put that on there. It's nicely made. It's just a typical cable. It looks good. The sheath, a little bit shiny, but looks fine. And on this end, this screw here, which comes with it, it's got that bit lathed off there so that it fits in, not perfectly, but tighter than my original fit in to this great big hole. You see, it's original here is a bigger hole. It's also a much bigger cable. So the Gowanlock one is actually quite a lightweight cable. In any case, that arrived and I spent some time routing that and so on. I discussed with him this end, the fact that this end here has this nylon bushing around it. See this little piece? And he said, no, they haven't got that. These ones, they're just just a plonk on there. And eventually I asked him, you've been there for years, in all your time, I asked him where he routed the cables when he does them, which was interesting. And I also asked him what problems people have with them if they do fray there. And he said no, that they actually fray up here because people don't lubricate them often enough or keep them lubed. And this bit here binds in the lever and causes it to, bind a bit, and then it catches, I guess, on the edge of, that slot or something, and it can fray it. To which I said, oh, well, that'll be why they put this on there, won't it? This bushing, because that would be able to dry out and avoid the binding still. Obviously, for people who maintain their bikes like us nowadays, it doesn't really matter. You'd keep it lubed if you were using that. But that would allow a commuter bike, decades ago to last a bit longer without having that piece bind. So that's interesting. Because I want my bike to be as perfect as possible, although I'd ordered that, pretty cheap too, like 27 bucks Australian, so good value. I took my old cable to a local cable maker and told him what I wanted. And that was to give us a new sheath. And on this end, because this is where it was frayed, I said, can you do something to make that fit better, shim it in some way? And he did. He lathed a piece, a custom ending here, and crimped that on. And it fits not super tight, but a lot tighter. See, so that's like that. That's nice. Very happy with that. So we did that. He put a nice piece on the end. He also made custom. And on the other end, he made a custom piece and then reused my bit of nylon from the old cable. And that was good. And I brought that back and set it up on the bike, and then found that the end that went into the clutch end on the lever was really floppy. Really floppy. Which I knew it was anyway, but I sort of looked at that and I thought, God, it's just crappy. And it was already wrecking the edge of this little barrel thing. I could see it just from when I was test mounting it. And so I thought, well, given that the cable was also had stretched, and so it was about a little bit too long, I wanted to get him to take some off so that this piece here could go in a bit further and give me more room to adjust. I wanted him to take off about 13 mil and lathe something up the same for this end as he had for the other end. And so he did that, and that's what I've just picked up. So now I have that end looking really nice, and this end, no movement at all. It's not press fit, it moves, but it's a tight fit. It's just a tiny bit of movement, and that's perfect. So I can have that coming out of the handlebar, out of the lever. Excellent. So that's what's happened. I've got this new cable now ready to put on, sort of a replica using original bits and with this shimmed sort of aspect, which I really like. I've done that on my throttle and choke cables as well, but using a little piece of tubing on each. So I've shimmed them all so that they all come out nice and parallel and with none of this flop. Because when you're trying to set up the throttle sync, you've got to have them nice and parallel and coming in and out nicely. And that bit where it sort of takes up tension by first righting itself when you put on the pressure is a pain. That's a pain. So I've been quite happy with that. Now the other thing, the length. Now that I've routed both cables on the bike, I would have to say that the long one is fine. It's not too long for the SS. If anything, the short one could be a little bit longer, but it depends how you route it, because you can route it in one case through the, I'll look at the bike in a moment. It can come off the lever and around next to the tank, that section, that channel that's cut out of the tank that sits on the frame back there, the backbone. It can go down there, and the short one pretty much goes down there and then across the backbone and out the other side. If you have the long lead, you can route it down lower and come under the tank, under the front edge of the tank, and along that side rail on the frame. You can come along there and then cross over. Both of those are quite good. I actually quite liked the long one, how you could do that. It sort of got in the way of my throttle and my brake hose, but once I'd sort of got it in the right position, it was actually good. I was quite happy with that. Then I was thinking, oh, maybe I should have got my replacement cable a bit longer, but no, I thought I'll just put this in and I'll route it where the old one was. And the fact that I've got this sorted out now with that slop means I'm not going to get the hard bend all the time that I was getting before. So that should sort that out. I'll be quite happy with that. So I'm going to put that all back together. What else? I also had a discussion about lube, because that is something, when you go online and you start looking it up, you get 1,000 answers. Probably the only consistent answer for lube was not to use chain lube. And yeah, people are using chain lube on their things, thinking that the stickiness is going to keep it in there or something, but no, that's wrong. You don't want that. The stickiness will keep it all in there and just make a mess. And any dirt and gunge and whatever is just going to make a mess. So not chain lube. But whether you should use synthetic or oil-based, hydrocarbon-based kind of lubricants, I didn't know. So I ended up asking and you couldn't get a good answer for that. I asked the people who make the cables, because they've been doing this for decades, and he gave me 2 lubricants. One being this one, and the other one also being the CRC. I'll just pull it up. Yeah, so we've got the multi-lube here, and we've got this one called CRC Syntex. Now both of them are synthetic. Synthetic non-drip lubricant, odorless, clear, does not attract dust, fresh and salt waterproof, heat and pressure resistant, does not drip off. So that's effectively a bit like a chain lube, but it's not sticky. It's a gel. So it doesn't glue itself on like that. It just has some physical stasis, some strength that keeps it in place. The other one is synthetic oil, silicone and solvent free. I think both of these are silicone free, I think. And both of them are oil free. They're synthetic oils. That's the whole point. I went with the gel. And I think the difference really in the different lubes is how often are you going to put it on, what environment is it going in, how long is the cable, what load is it under, how often you're going to maintain it, are you going to re-lube it, or what are you going to do? Is it just going on an outboard motor and it's going to stay there for years and never touched again? What's the situation? And when you have a classic bike, you're sort of maintaining things all the time, so that doesn't matter so much. You can use something more lightweight if you want, like an oil or a straight silicone spray, that kind of thing. But I decided to use this one. And the way this goes on is it comes in with a solvent or a solution, something that makes it thin. Apply it as a clear oil with excellent capillary action. CRC Multi-Lube penetrates quickly before solvents evaporate, leaving a waterproof load-bearing gel that stays in place, withstands high pressure, shock conditions, blah, blah, blah. Unique formulation, speedy shift in viscosity, provides excellent penetration action and staying power, ideal for turning, rotating, blah, blah, blah. So that's the point. If you get this in there, the solvents evaporate and leaves the lube behind quite nicely. I did ask about the inner sheath, what about some, say, Teflon and others, or various plastics. They're all basically a plastic type of sheath inside. I don't know whether it's plastic, nylon, Teflon, whatever. They said it makes no difference. You can use any kind of lube. They all work. None of them are going to screw up your cable innard. So that's all right. In any case, that's what we went with. Now to get that in there, got one of these things. This is one of these cable lube attachments, these gadgets. And I had to modify it a bit. I popped this piece out and had a look at it because my piece here is too big for the little hole that you have to push it in. I ended up just popping this off the can. It comes off like that. Put it in a drill and ran it on my grinder just to form a bit of a tip there. This GoPro doesn't close focus. It doesn't have any focus, so if it's not sharp at this distance, that's why. So I did that with that. This thing here is going to do that job, hopefully. It basically just forms a seal around the cable and around the body. Lets you put the lube in and give it a squirt and force it down. Now, obviously, with this solvent issue, I'm going to be trying to get it all the way down, out the other side, in one go. So I want it sealed up really well. I don't know if it's going to come squirting out or what. I've never used one of these before. So, first job, though, is to do my routing. Now, I'll go and swap the camera over to the bike. GoPro, stop recording. Okay, now I haven't lubed this cable. I'm just going to have a look at routing it. Obviously at the bottom end, there's really only one way it can go, and I don't need to show that in particular. Obviously, this bit here gets screwed in down there, and I'm going to screw it quite far in. So just cleaning that thread so that you can use your fingers and not have to resort to a wrench because it's just impossible to get to. Okay. So yesterday I could only put this in a few millimeters, and it was because it was too long, the inner cable. Okay, so that's gone most of the way in, and then I'll hook the little nipply thingy down at the end, a little plunk into the clutch lever. Now I have my original clutch actuator thing down there. I haven't got one of those long ones, just because. Right, so now the important bit is, where do we go? Now I used to put it, these are my dynacoils, and they're mounted on a bracket which attaches to the frame right there and right there. I used to put this through that, underneath this rail, then across there like that. That's what I would do. Which is still not bad, actually. You see, if I want to keep the cable low in the, coming out of the tank quite low, that's the best place for me to do it on this particular bike. The other way, which I played with, is to come over the top. So I go up again, up that part, and I guess we'll go here. And it's to go like this. Come over the top of the frame. There's plenty of room for all of this. Come over the top of the frame. I can then adjust that quite well to get this angle right. And the difference is, I'm not running along the bottom here, I'm running up higher. The real difference is, it's either below or above my throttle cables. And that's what matters. I've decided that being above the cables, the throttle cables, is where I want to be. My throttle cables are all handmade, and they fit together very nicely. They're all the correct length. They stay together quite well. And so I can keep them away from this and away from my brake hose there. So if I run this over the top of the frame, don't know if you can see this, this is my choke, which is intentionally a little bit loose. It just squeezes into the tank like that, quite nicely. Now at the top, I'm just going to mount this into the bracket. First I'm going to take this thing and put it back in. Okay. Gonna make sure I got the bearing in there. I do. Okay. And I'll slip this cable in down here once more, because of course it came out. There we go. I'm just going to slip it in here, and exactly the right length to mount it all. Good. So, now as I said earlier, the cable runs into that center channel inside in the tank right there, and so there's a sort of a steep turn at the front there. It's quite nice when you go that way, but when you come this way, the cable gets pushed out a bit, and it sort of rubs against the tank, the inside of the tank on that front edge, and it rubs there. And as you know, unless you tie it, it sort of goes up and down a bit and rubs the tank. Now the cable was quite worn on that spot because of that, and on my tank, because I have a nice fresh paint job, I actually put tape. I use some silver plastic tape on the inside to give it a surface to rub against. And part of this job is maybe to look at dealing with that in a different way. You know, rerouting this, and I've got a few things I consider doing. Number one, I've got some shrink wrap that will fit over this. Some black shrink wrap. I could take a piece like that, I could put it on the cable, and just have it at that spot. That would at least protect the cable somewhat. I got the wrap so it just fit over the plonk on this end, so I could get it over, and that'll shrink down nicely. So that's one option. Another is this. If you go down to your electronics store, you can buy this stuff for cheap. It's a plastic sheath for cabling, and it's split down the middle along its length. So what you can do is you can just squeeze it on to a cable like that. And obviously this gives us a tube that the cable can move in. And I thought that was a pretty good idea, because I could fasten this somewhere here. You know, people always say don't lock your ties, you don't tie your cables down, but I can tie that thing down, and the cable is free to move inside it by that little bit that it wants to, whatever it needs to. And I could, fasten this to the frame, and I'll play with it to see what would need to stick out the tank. It could either just miss that, it could just miss the steering head. In fact, this thing here, if it's attached to this frame here, like that, pretty much causes it to miss the steering head. It just keeps it up enough off the steering head. Yeah. And so in terms of movement, let me just see, if I had that around about there, I'll have to confirm that this isn't, the tank will fit there nicely. I'm just going to watch the cable and see if it moves. No, it doesn't. It doesn't move that way, it doesn't move that way, but it can. See that? There's that slack. So I'll go all the way out like that, and now I'll pull it in. I'm going to watch the cable move. Yes, and in it goes. About that much in total. That's exactly how much it wants to move back and forth. Go that way, comes out, but you just give it a tap and then it goes out all the way. That's actually really tidy. Alternatives are, so it's well away from my throttle cables, at least up here. I mean, that's the cable going to run past it, sort of. The other one goes down below. I tie them up just to hold them up to a certain position with a loose tie. That's what I do, which will be well out of the way of this this piece of plastic I'm looking at here. Yeah, I think that's really good, actually. So what I'll do next is I'll trial fit the tank. I'll just put the tank on. I'll leave that all there. I'm going to check all of these to see how it fits. I'm very happy with the... let's have a look at this. Very happy with how this is sitting. Instead of having that sharp angle that it always comes out at, like bent, which I always hate, it's coming out straight out. I got a nice curve here. Yeah. Now, just drop it like that. Pick up the side. There we go. I'm going to look underneath it here. Let me get a flashlight and have a look. So I'm just trying to see how those cables are sitting. Okay. Oh, nice and loose. Yeah, there's tons of space. The tank usually sits about there. And the cable has, I'm just grabbing it here. See, it's not hitting anything. Now it's sitting low at the moment, right there. I'm going to want it to sit up there. Basically just above the bracket screw there. Just above that. So without anything, it rubs on the tank right there. This is my tape. You can see the tape. So it rubs there. That's how I had it in the past. Now my plan is to have this down there, like that, and give it a bit of a tunnel. I don't really want this to be visible. So I may end up putting it in there. So it's just inside the tank, so you just don't see it. You know, I'd like to keep it off that thing. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to be on here for 50,000 miles. But something like that. And if I can then take that in to where it's just hidden. Yeah. I can make it so it looks like the cable's going back, but it's not resting against this tank part here. It's actually just sitting in that tube behind there. And the tube can be set so that it keeps it slightly off that thing as well. Perfect. That should be easy. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, I'll take the tank off again. Well, let's try and do this thing with the lube. How do we do this? I wonder if I should clamp this somewhere in case it does come squirting out. There we go. Just got that. So I can see it. And on this end, we're going to use this gadget. Now the gadget has a stepped sort of a thing in there. You put the cable through, goes into a slot. And this just got this single piece of rubber, like a bit of tubing. And then this thing here has a couple of places it can go up to. Because this is a bit larger than normal, It might go out one, but I'll start with the one upwards. So this obviously clamps down on the cable, and this end clamps down on the rest of it. I think that's actually looking all right. That's tight. I'm pretty sure it's all going to come out somewhere, like there or somewhere. It's got to come out. So let's just take this. Let me do something like that. Something that'll let me see it and hear it, whilst also stopping it from squirting all over the workshop too much. Something like that. And this end we'll have a go at the squirt. So that's on. I'll get a paper towel in case this all gets super messy. We'll test the squirt. Okay. Put that in. I'm thinking it'll probably come squirting out here. Right, here we go. I'm sort of watching the other end. Okay, it's coming out the cable. Yeah, it's coming out the cable here. Oh, I can hear it at the other end. Yep, it's coming out the other end. Oh, yeah. Oh, there we go. All right, that's gone everywhere. Oh, it is jelly, like. Gosh. Gosh. Let's just wipe it all up. It's holding on tight. It's sort of slimy a little bit. A little bit like a gel. Yeah. Right, and the other end was burbling away while I was doing that. You can see it's come out into this thing quite nicely. So that worked quite well. Well, it's lubed. Not much else you can say about that. I think I'm going to use this lube stuff here on these bits. We'll use it on that. We'll use it on the cable. And I'm going to use it on this whole thing down here. And on the cable at this end. Why not? At least then it's all one thing. Ugh. Ugh. It's got a funny feel to it. It says it doesn't attract dust, but it's sort of surprising if it doesn't. It definitely feels like a gel. Right, now I'll start with this bit, put that through. Okay, so that's there. Next part, I'm going to run it up here. So we're going to go up under that. Over there. And that gives this room to move either side. I could, depending on how it sits, I could put it one way or the other. I had a look at a lot of pictures of old bikes to see how these were routed, brochures and stuff, and typically about parallel to that one. I noticed some people routed theirs up there like that, attached it to that frame, but roughly parallel to that is good with me because it suits everything, the fuel, that, and so on. It's all the same. So, here's this piece. Get on there. Okay. Now, what I want to have is a bit of adjustment on the lever here, just so when I'm out riding, if I feel I need to adjust it, I've got a bit of room there. So I'm going to make it so that the slack is taken up. Get this out a couple of turns. Yeah. And I like to set it. It's set so that you keep the, there's a ball bearing, and if that sits in this slot that's cut out of that, that brass piece, it holds its position. Okay. So I've just gone out a couple of turns, so there's about that much thread available, meaning I could wind it in if I wanted, and there's plenty of room to wind it out. So on this end, I've got some slack, which I'm just going to take up. That's good. I found that Gowan lock cable I was using, for some reason it felt heavier than the original, and I don't know why. It's a thinner cable, thinner inner than this. And now this one feels like it did before. With the Gowan lock cable, I could feel the braiding as it was pulling. You could feel it go grrr, grrr. And here I'm not feeling that. Possibly because I've got everything so perfect that the poles are all straight. It's not giving me any drag on the ends of the cable. All right, so I think the tank and sort of comes down roughly there. I think you can sort of just see that weld. I'm going to fasten this in such a way that it's about like that. The only question is, how far forward do I let it come? If I leave this bit behind the head, then the cable touches the head. If I let it come out a tiny bit, I think it'll be visible. If I go all the way, it's definitely visible, which I could do. I mean, it's not a no-no. Let's just mount it with one and see what happens, see what it feels like. Let's try that. So the nice thing with this stuff is I can put it on fairly tight, and I'm not squeezing the cable or anything. see if I come back to there. I think about there it won't be seen, but it does touch the steering head when I go left, which is no great drama at all, really. And just because the steering head is so much bigger than this backbone, I mean, it's I can't really clear it without putting this out on it. And then it'll be visible and it'll be pushing against the tank, whereas if I do it like this, it'll be out of the way. Right. Don't need one there. And then these cables, I normally like them up there a bit, and previously I just had a loose tie around the frame here. I wonder if I had that at the front or did I have it back there? Can't remember. But I just hold it about that sort of height. Oops, that was a bit of a jump. Nope, that's fine. Okay, now is that how we're going to have it? Let's have a look. Yes. Oh, it's doing what I wanted it to do. Yes, it's working. Well, let's follow this from here. We'll just look at everything. So up here, I've got that much slack in the lead, so I can adjust this further out. I've got that much thread, and it can go out, you know, you get a whole centimeter or more out of that. So I've got plenty of room to adjust that, and there's a little bit of slack on it right now. There. And as we can see, we're getting a nice line out of that from that new crimp there. Real nice. Love it. So I can put this on and I can squeeze it up and onto there. And then back out and over that. Let me use two hands. There we go. That's how it's supposed to look. Excellent. Excellent. And the line, of course, perfect. Now, what I noticed is that the cable, see there, it moved. I go this way and it comes out. Go this way and it pops back in. So I've got a nice bit of movement there through that, through this sheath, if necessary. And that's now, instead of dragging along the tank and dragging along the frame, obviously out here the cable just goes like that. Plenty of room to move. Comes down here, and that's the angle we've got. Okay, so if I had the longer cable in that same arrangement, there'd be an extra 13 centimeters of cable to deal with here. This is quite nice. I can attach it anywhere. In fact, it could even run up there, as I've seen some people do it, you know. It could even run up like that if necessary. It's a thought. I saw someone do that. They tied it to the frame. I wouldn't tie it there necessarily. But I think for now, I'm just going to let it hang like that. This will go like that. That's fine. I'm very happy with that, I think. It's certainly an improvement on how it was. So I'll give this all a wipe and put the tank back, and then we'll have a look at it again. So we've got the throttle cables right there. They run together, plenty of movement, room to move, plenty of room. I mean, they touch the frame there when it's all the way that way. Tiny bit. And this way, it's all nice and clear. These two cables run together very nicely like that. And put one over the other. The clutch cable, very nice, very nice. I can just see the, I can just see a little bit of that piece there. I don't care, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Happy with that. Sounds like we've got a tui outside in the tree. It's that time of year. They make quite a good sound, those do. All kinds of sounds they make. So now this side, yeah, that's really the only choice there is. And let me go. Yep, perfect. I route my fuel line down underneath the carb on this side. I've seen people put it up over the top. But my battery and my oil breather hose and all of that prohibits that. So mine goes underneath. And it's nice because it always stays away from everything like that. So that's the reason mine goes there. Don't know where they're supposed to go, but that makes good sense to me. There we go. All right. That feels better. That feels better than the other cable did. I don't hear any kind of, or feel any kind of braiding in there. It's, for some reason, it's not as heavy. I don't know if that's just a mental thing or what. And that cable comes out of there very nicely and goes in there very nicely. Oh, I'm very happy with all that. It's the first time I've got that coming out straight. Yeah. Keep that locked in with the bearing on that side. Doesn't move. Very good. So I'm very happy with all the routing here after all that. Yes, that's a clutch. Got its own space above the above there and above those bolts above the bracket. As I say, the throttle is basically behind this bracket, and the brake hose has a kink in it, taking it away, so it gives it a channel. And these two here, I don't use any ties on that. I just run it down through the frame. It's a little bit long, that. I could tie it, but I don't. I'll just leave it as is. And these two here from the headlight, they just go under there above the lock. They don't move anyway, but nothing really touches them. So yeah, that's all pretty tidy. I like it. Quite happy with all that. It doesn't touch the thing. It's such a tight fit, everything here. You know, the Brembo reservoir just misses. You got to get it in a certain spot so it just misses. Yeah, quite good. All right, and that's that job done. It's another seemingly minor, meaningless job, but I like to take it all the way. All right, bye-bye.